is made possible by the View Conference, the biggest computer graphics conference in Italy. Our dates for 2024 are from the 14th to the 19th of October. We hope to see you in Italy or online. For more information about View Conference, please visit our website, viewconference.it.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you may be, welcome to today's preview discussion panel, 5 Oscar contenders for Best Animated Short. For the next hour or so, we're going to dive deep into the minds of the filmmakers behind this year's 5 Oscar-nominated animated shorts. They're all here. They're going to take advantage of such a unique gathering to pepper them with all sorts of questions that hopefully they haven't heard 5,000 times over the last few months. First, I want to thank our host, Dr. Maria Elena Gutierrez, director of the View Conference, a singular force of nature, one of the most thoughtful, passionate, and energetic voices in the animation, VFX, gaming, and transmedia industries. Maria Elena, thank you, and the View Conference for hosting this fantastic series, inviting me and everyone to participate. I also want to mention again that this year's View Conference is set for October 14th to 19th in Turin. We hope to see you there. The great sessions of View 2023 are currently available as a VOD subscription on the View website as well. I encourage you to pull them. There's what, 150, 200. There's a bunch of great talks you can access. This year's selection of Oscar contending animated short films is as strong as any I've seen in many, many years that I've been doing this. It showcases a wide range of state-of-the-art visual styles across 2D and 3D CG, and it's equally important, compelling, well-crafted, and emotional storytelling that makes incredibly effective use of the medium of animation to capture the hearts and minds of audiences around the world. We have the directors and some of the producers of each of the 5 nominated films with us. We're going to do our best to entice them to share their insights about the films, the paths they took to tell such wonderful stories, and the challenges they faced working in such a time-consuming and demanding medium. And we hope you can take away a better understanding of the art and craft and industry of animation and what went into the making of these films. I'm going to introduce them very quickly, and then we're going to get into the questions. For the film Letter to a Pig, we have Tal Kantor, the director, and Amit Gicelter, the producer. For the film 95 Senses, we have Jerusha Hess, who's the co-director. For Our Uniform, we have Yegan Moghaddam, who's the director. For Pachyderme, we have Stéphanie Clément, who's the director. And for War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko, we have Dave Mullins, who wrote and directed the film, and Brad Booker, who's the producer. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Tal, I'm going to start with you. Why make this film? Why deal with this story? When did you first get the idea? And what about the idea compelled you to turn it into a short film?
Thank you, Dan. It's an honor to be here among all these fantastic films. I just want to say thanks. So Letter to a Pig is based on my personal experience as a young schoolgirl, encountering an unbelievable story of a Holocaust survivor who came to my class to share his story with the letter to the pig, and also a memorable dream that I had followed this encounter. Both the dream and the survivor story stayed with me for many years. The impact was so strong as it evoked deep questions for me on my identity and the baggage that I and the young generation subconsciously carry, and developed to become an urge to create this film eventually. I saw in a way that, like, my personal and local experience as an opportunity to examine more universal and humane issues that I found interesting and extremely important. That is the way trauma and pain can be transmitted from one generation to the next. And I was also quite fascinated by the social and personal implication this transmission has on future generations, how these narratives can shape their moral outlook on themselves and the world. And knowing that this subject was quite widely represented also cinematically, I wanted in this film to bring a different angle and shift the camera 180 degrees, focusing not only on those who speak the stories of the past, but rather those who listen to them quietly in class. What happens inside their souls? What do they remember and embrace from these stories? And in a way, it was my way to observe this and ask, among other things, can we learn and talk about our past traumas, our past, without transmitting it to future generations? I wanted to, evoke those questions and thoughts on the screen and share it. So this is, in a nutshell, what I had in mind.
Amit, what brought you to the film and what compelled you to kind of get involved with this story?
So I think that the project itself was so important for me to be part of. I think just from what Tal mentioned at the end, I think it's such a unique perspective of telling a story about these past history. So it was important for me to just be part of this narrative. I think that in a way, the collaboration that I had with my partners in Mio Productions in France was also from achieving such a complicated production. It was important for me to try to get this right, and I really had I really enjoyed the fact that it was a very complex adventure to go through this production.
Jerusha, what about you? Tell us about your film. What made it the film that you chose to make, as opposed to other ideas you might have had?
Yeah, so my husband and I, we got the idea via a nonprofit in our hometown of Salt Lake City, Utah. And the nonprofit was trying to pair existing established directors with up and coming animators. And we just love that mentorship role. And so we jumped on board. It was all during the pandemic. We felt energized by helping people move their career forward. We just thought that was a really exciting idea. And then we brought on our screenwriting friends, Hubble Palmer and Chris Bowman, and they had been studying for another project these exit interviews from inmates at the Huntsville prison in Texas, which is the highest death row prison in America. So they've been watching all of these exit videos, I guess is what they're called. And they were so moved by how much empathy they had, right? You think of these are the bad guys, and yet they were just blown away by so much humanity in people's telling of here's my life in a nutshell. So knowing that this was a competition for animators, they decided to break up this story within the 5 senses. So there would be 5 to 6 animation teams to have a part in each thing. And when it's a huge collaboration, as all animation is, but even more so for us, because it felt like we just wanted to celebrate each of these animators' styles and their voice, because that was the point of it, is to support them in their journey. And so each of them came at it with the coolest ideas, and we loved doing it. So that's how 95 Senses came to be.
When we die, our 5 senses shut down one by one in this order. First, we lose our sense of smell. That goes as soon as we stop breathing. Next is sight. Blood leaves the head. Picture goes black. Then it's a horse race between touch and taste, as the feeling drains out of our limbs and tongue. Last to go is our hearing. That's why nurses in terminal care, even after a patient codes out, well, they'll tell a family, keep talking. Grandma can still hear you. Look, nobody knows till they know. I read a theory somewhere. It might be that we humans have 100 senses, but we're only aware of the 5. Maybe when we pass away, as those 5 perish, the other ones switch on. That could be the afterlife, enjoying our 95 other senses. That's a nice thought.
Yegan, why don't you tell us about your film? Why make this film?
Yeah. So honestly, my motivation for making this film was mainly experimenting with animation. And I also wanted to make a film about the education system in Iran. But since our education system is so focused on our uniforms, it turned out to be a film mainly about the uniform and the fabrics, everything that we experience. All I had when I was making this film, a uniform. It was really just a uniform and very few equipment. So that's why I decided to make a very simple film about my experience in our schools as a girl on a uniform.
Stéphanie, tell us about your film.
What drew me to animation and to the I have struggled to speak aloud with words. I have a big struggle with words, but animation and pictures and create images. It helped me to communicate with others about some subject that I need to talk about or to explore. For example, for Pachyderme, one of the first concept artwork I made for it was the little girl on the water with all the hand around her. It was I tried to make symbolize a repressed memory on the oceans of the inconscient. I don't know the word in English, l'inconscient, what's very deep inside us. And the end was a way to express that the memory is not fully drawn in the mind, but not completely put on the outside.
Dave and Brad, what I guess part of it is what brought you to Sean and Yoko, and kind of how did this all begin, and with that and tell that story that way?
Yeah, I mean, we had a mutual. I worked at Pixar for a long time. Sean and I had a mutual friend at Pixar that he reached out to because he was, I guess, Universal Music had wanted to do a music video for the song "Happy Christmas, War Is Over," his mom and dad's song, and he didn't like that idea, which is great to just like add a bunch of like, visual poem to the song. He's, his thought on that was, well, what's the point? It's that's not really doing anything to speak to the song or really speak to the message of the song. So he reached out to me, and we had a meeting where we just talked about the song and what it meant to us. And the song's really interesting because it's like it's an anti-war message, but it's kind of wrapped in this like candy wrapper of a holiday song. And his parents, John and Yoko, were really smart about that because they knew, they were protesting the Vietnam War at the time. They knew if they put the protest inside a holiday song that would play every year, and people would hear their message every year of peace and anti-war. So we met and we started talking about the song and what it meant to me, what it meant to Sean, and just sort of right away in a couple like quick 1 or 2 hour meetings, we came up with the story because we just sort of listened to what the song was trying to tell us. We knew that like, okay, this is an anti-war film story. We have to put it into a war setting. And then the big thing that we really connected on was this idea that, you have all these people in the world, whether, there's somebody in your family that you don't agree with politically, or it's another country, or, whatever it is, where everybody's so sure that they don't agree on anything. We have so much division in the world, especially politically. And we really connected on this idea of like, if we could get people to bring down their barriers a little bit and connect and talk to one another, they're probably going to find out they have a lot more in common than they think. Everybody loves their family, everybody loves their children or their parents or their brothers and sisters. And what we wanted to do is just tell a story where two opposing sides that were sure that they hated each other, wanted to destroy each other, found this way to connect. And once they did, it sort of brought humanity to both sides from the perspective of each side. And once that happened, maybe there's other ways to sort of resolve conflicts other than just war and killing. So that was the big idea that we connected on. We came up with the outline in a couple meetings, and I think I wrote that screenplay that night, which is like a 11-page screenplay, and it's pretty close to what the film is now.
One of the questions that came in is actually dovetails nicely with the next question I was going to ask. So I'm going to, there's a question from Abigail Flores, and I'm going to merge that into my next question. And Dave and Brad, we're going to stay with you to start. How did you arrive at the look of your film? What inspired the designs, the style of the animation, the overall look and tone of the film? And was the final look you had close to the look that you started the development with, or how much did it change over the course of your development? Dave and Brad, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think all along Dave and I were very part of what we're trying to do at Electro League is do films that are a little more aged up and that have a little more of a trying to get away from the family space a little bit. So I think for Dave and me and our production designer, Zach Retz, was protecting that look and making sure his paintings got on screen. And I think, with the help of Weta, we did a lot of exploration on how to do that. And they did a lot of development technically inside of the Unreal Engine. And I think, a lot of times you have this really beautiful concept artwork that, the making of book is beautiful, but somehow or another it gets watered down and becomes kind of a cartoon of itself. So for us, it was really important. And I think so much so in the final product that a lot of Zach's brushstrokes like made it right into the actual, especially in the backgrounds. But Dave, I think you can speak to the characters a little bit more, but there's a painterly style that meets kind of a 2D outline shader on the characters that we were really adamant about getting on screen.
Yeah, just to add to that, just a second, so other people could talk. But the thing you asked was, how close was it, what we developed in pre-production to what's on screen, and I'd say it's damn near close to 1-to-1. The edict from the beginning was I wanted Zach's paintings and Max Narciso's character designs on screen. So what inspired it was, I come from a painting background. So we looked, once the film landed in sort of that World War I era, we looked at two of my favorite artists, which was J.C. Leyendecker and Norman Rockwell. And so the Norman Rockwell designs, we had Max Narciso kind of think about that as he was designing the characters. And then with Zach, the sort of J.C. Leyendecker of it all, we kind of wanted him to think about that as he was making his pre-production art. But what we set out to do got on screen, which is, I think, probably one of the biggest achievements of the film in a lot of ways for us.
And was this always basically going to be an Unreal Engine project?
Yep. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Dave and I set out when we founded ElectroLeague. It's really working a different way, where we go straight from script to the stage, where we try to capture stuff. We spend time building our assets up front, and then we actually capture performance as a really rough foundation for what later becomes the blocking for animators and even the visual style. So it really serves as a foundation, and then we build on top of it. We definitely want human hand to be represented on screen. Like, we're using these as tools to get down the road faster so we can iterate more and spend our time making, once we figure the story out, then we're spending our time making the art beautiful and
final frame.
Yeah.
Got it. Yegan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your visual development? How did you arrive at the look of the film? What inspired the design of the film? And did you start with a different look? Did you finish pretty close to what you started with, or was there a fairly involved path of discovery, so to speak, for the design?
I think pretty much from the start, I knew that I want to work on fabric. I tested different styles, like color pencil. At some point, I tried to test some gouache on the fabric, or real embroidery, different things. But at the end, I decided to go with the simplest one, which was colored pencil composited on fabric. And the final look, it was very different from the first test that I did. But for me, it was the most satisfying.
And what type of testing did you do along the way to kind of figure out what you wanted, what you ended up with?
First, I think I need to make it clear. I never did anything directly on the fabric, because many people think that I made this film frame by frame on fabric. it was nearly impossible to do that. I did the stop motion separately and the drawing and 2D animation separately. I somehow blended the layers with each other. So I did some tests with, as I told you, colored pencil, and I just did different things, and I composited different layers on the fabric, and I compared them to see which one looks more appealing to me. And I decided the color pencil because it had childlike strokes, pencil strokes. That was what I was looking for.
Okay. Tal and Amit, tell us a little bit about your visual, your process of visual development. You've got a number of different, you blend a number of different kind of techniques, so to speak, including some live action into your film. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with that formula and whether or not that's kind of how you started, or what was your process to get there.
So I started based on my previous film, In Other Words, where I developed this technique that fuses 2D hand-drawn animation with segments of live action. But in this film, I wanted to make my life even more easy and add another layer, which is a painted animation on paper, acrylic on paper. So it's kind of a blend between the frame by frame painting on paper, 2D and video footage segments. I found this technique quite interesting and very playful. That allows me to shift the focus of the viewer and bring this kind of a subjective point of view. Imitating a little bit how our memory works. For me, this technique really relates to memory and how some elements we can remember quite vividly and precisely, and that remain realistic on screen, while others can form, change, disappear, appear, and to give this kind of feeling that we are in a world between reality and memory and imagination, and shift between the three and blend it. And I find it also quite interesting and fun to be able, with this technique, to show the inner world of the characters. Not only, how they express or verbalize their experience, for example, the old man, but also how they feel from the inside. So to let the vibrating stain covering the survivor's face speak, about the burden from the past, or very thin lines for the young girl when she wishes to disappear from the situation and just slide under the table. So this kind of like form and formabilic way of animation was something that was part of the development process until we reached the final look of the film.
I think that I'll also add that, this technique was, the whole point was to kind of envision what Tal had in her mind, and it was such a complex pipeline to kind of develop on this project, especially when we're working in 2 different locations, actually even more if we're accounting to the amount of people from all around the world that helped us on this production. And there were so many complex things that involved, like, not only the filming of like the plates of actors, but also then layering it down with the 2D animation and the paint that had to be drawn and scanned onto those layers, and then literally following it frame by frame through this process with the effects, with the visual effects. So certainly, it was a very intricate vision that we had to kind of like to take into account over the past couple of years of this production.
Great. Jerusha, why don't you chime in now? Tell us a little bit about how you arrived at the look of the film, and kind of what the path was to get there, and if where you ended up is close to where you started.
Yeah, I think it was such a different process than everyone else here, because we were taking submissions of all these artists and picking people, hand selecting, oh, this art is cool and this person's work is cool, but never telling them this is how we want it to look. The thing we had to decide was our character Koi. What is the character design, and can you guys, we just have to follow that design throughout, but please have as much fun as you want. That was kind of the methodology. And so each of these animation teams would pitch their idea, and for the most part, we loved it. And we said, okay, let's just work within what you're doing, from that Zoom quilt style for the hearing segment to the interstitials of Koi, which at the very end, when they go through the 5 senses leaving your body when you die, that's all hand painted beautifully. So there's all these different styles. And I think the thing that grounds it, and the thing that makes you think, oh, this is one movie, is first off that gorgeous monologue that Tim Blake Nelson does. Just kind of the whole film hangs on him. And this one character Koi that we keep bouncing back to. And early on, we knew that we wanted Daniel Brousson, he was the animator for that part, to take that section and kind of be the thing we keep coming back to. So yeah, it was all a surprise. It was all a surprise, and a delightful surprise. But it worked somehow.
How many of those submissions, how many individuals or kind of teams did you go out to that then submitted material for you to kind of riff through?
Our producer got dozens, because this was the whole point of this nonprofit, is to take these submissions and find mentors for these animators. So there were dozens and dozens of submissions, and by the time I saw it, it was already really weaned down to the top, the top 10, and then we went through and picked who would fit each element. I remember one of the animators, his name is Casey Toby. He does the taste segment, and it's literally, it doesn't feel like any of the other, none of them feel the same, but it was literally like a palate cleanser for such a heavy moment right before, when you find out that this character had accidentally killed a family. So yeah, it just, I think we just went with our gut and had a lot of faith that these teams were going to kill it, and they ended up doing a great job.
Stephanie, why don't you tell us about your visual development and design path on your film?
Yes, it's been a very it's my concept artwork. It's my art style. So, but I was greatly inspired by the painting of Van Gogh, the sinuous lines, and also I think some pictures, some paintings speak a lot about some things that inside. For example, the painting of Munch for Pachyderme. I really wanted some things that feel soft, gentle, because the subject is really tough, really hard to put in image, in picture, and it was really important for me that the visual to be kind, colorful, because for the character, she is not aware of what she is telling us. For her, it was really just holidays, so memories, and that's a past she completely repressed. And the art style and the color and the had to be with her awareness of what she's trying to say to us, what we have to understand for her.
I want to ask kind of a perfunctory question that I know everyone is always interested in. So Stephanie, we'll stay with you real quick. How long did it take to make your film? How long to kind of write and board and the rest of pre-production? How long was the production and completion segment? And how long did it take you to fund your film?
It took us 5 years to make the film complete, from the first artwork to the final mixing. But for the production on itself, the fabrication of the animations, it took us 2 years.
2 years. And when you started at the beginning of that 5 years, were you fully funded at that point, or did you complete funding along the way?
Along the way. It's very difficult to funding a short film. I don't know all around the world, but in France it's not easy. So we took a lot of patience and patience to work,
Right.
even if it's not an easy way.
I don't think it's easy to fund anywhere.
Everybody's like sitting there going, yep.
Yeah.
So as I told you, this project for me, it was not really a professional. I was just doing something amateur. And the whole thing, I think it took me something around 5 months. From the very, very original drawings and tests to the final rendering. It was roughly around 5 months. And I wish I could spend at least 2 more months to make it very closer to what I had in mind. But at some point, I had to just finish it very quickly. The funding, as I told you, this is not, again, a very professional film. So I had a producer who was my father. He helped me just provide what I needed. And this is a very low budgeted film, actually.
Listen, we take our funding where we can get it. So that's perfectly good way to make a film. Tal and Amit, what about for you?
I think I'll answer that. It took us quite a while. I think it was in total, it was about 5 years from start to finish. I mean, we had from the development took about a year for the writing and for the development of the concept art. We had incredible people with us like Moria Cohen, who was our script editor, and Stav Levy, who was a storyboard artist. And after developing it and whilst still trying to finance the process, because we didn't have the money from the get-go, we pretty much did it as we went along. We started we moved into the pre-production stage, and that also took about a year, where we had to do all the filming, the references, and eventually also the editing of the animatic and the process of moving it into the production. Tal received earlier on an award from Cyclic Animation Residency in France. And so the animation process had to happen in France, and with Muir Productions managing it for about 6 months in a beautiful city called Vendôme. And we brought together their talented animators from Brazil, Portugal, and also from France, like Meton and Teresa. And eventually we had COVID, which kind of broke up the pack, and everyone kind of went their separate ways, and we all continued from our different places around the world. And to finish the production also took almost a year and a half until we finalized everything, and Tal managed to get everything together into one timeline. I mean, we had amazing people there from the background, Daffy Ben-Ami, who was our background artist, and Pierre Ubenkampf, who was our composer, and sound design that happened in Israel, which was Erez Eini Shavit, and Shahar Davis on visual effects. I think it was a huge team effort to get this process with about 40 people from all around the world helping us on this production. And 5 years in total, I think, but that was even, I'm not including the finance stages because that just kept on going. I think even now we're still trying to finance things that have been happening. So it's just an endless process for us.
Okay. Jerusha, what about for you?
It took 3 years from beginning to end, and a lot of that's because COVID slowed things down, but also everyone was doing this as a side gig, you know, this isn't a paid project and everyone's jumping on after their real jobs, and I think that is how all short films are made. It's just their passion projects, and yeah, I think each of the animators, it took them like a month to a storyboard and then maybe 3 to 4 months to animate specifically, if you want to know those details. But 3 years in total. I don't know how the funding went because it was part of a nonprofit. I think there was some donor money that we were able to use. But again, it's low budget and fast and furious, but it took a while, right? COVID really probably shot us all in the foot. But then it was also a gift because all the animators were all over the world and they could just do this, you know, in those very slow months. So
right. Dave and Brad, what about for you?
Yeah, for us, it took us about 2 years in total, a little bit longer if you count the pre-production, but the thing that was unique about our project is it started out as one thing, and as we like to say, lightning struck the same tree 6 times. As that happened, it morphed into something bigger. And, you know, for me as a producer trying to fund the project, I was always chasing the next big addition. So, you know, I guess the answer is it feels like we're still trying to fund our film in a weird way.
Feels like
Yeah.
we are still trying to fund our film.
And you know, Dave and I, like, it was very much a full-time job for us. I mean, it felt, you know, like from our past, the level of work that went into it felt like a feature film because it was just Dave and I. We had no assistants. You know, we over the course, kind of in the middle, we had been working, we had shot some of the principal capture on the Avatar stage. And then, of course, working with Weta, they were also working on Avatar. And then about, I don't know, as we really started ramping to production, it became very clear that we were going to lose a lot of our help because Avatar became an all hands on deck situation at Weta. And what that allowed us to do, we were having some problems in the third act, and it allowed us to go in and really focus on that as because it kind of slowed down for about 6 months. It was in the fall leading into the finishing of Avatar, and then we didn't really ramp back up until March of 23. So for us, we had to shuck and jive a little bit in terms of, you know, we kind of had to roll with the punches as they came and be very agile.
Yeah, I think when we started, our ambition, let's see if we can see it on screen, our ambition was way up here, and like how we were going to figure it out was way down here. And then as people saw the thing and pitched in, I think this is probably true with all of you, everybody here, you know, then you start to get like people starting to pitch in and they're getting interested and they want to get involved. And, you know, I think it sort of speaks to how good all these stories are and all these producers and directors are here, that people pitched in as you go because they believed in all these projects. And so anyways, like wanting to do something up here, like we just had to work our way to get there. We wasn't at the beginning, we weren't really sure how we could
our original budget went out the window as these people started to come in, and it wasn't so much that it became a much higher budget, it just became a different budget because there were a lot of people, you know, there's a lot of sweat equity that gets thrown in, as I'm sure you guys all experienced, but then alongside of some of these bigger sweat equity, contributions. Because of that, then you have to go out and find some hard dollars to compensate in other aspects of the film. So it really was a lesson in agility and producing, and just there's just so much that goes into it. But we're not, we're very appreciative. It was an amazing situation.
I'm going to drag a question from Joseph in in the audience that really dovetails with a question that I was going to ask. I'm going to put them together. Talking about kind of key points in your production. Was there a point in the production where you said to yourself, "Okay, I've got a film, and we're going to produce this, and it's going to work"? And conversely, was there a time where you plopped yourself down on a chair or couch and said, "What have I got myself into?" Share a little bit about your feelings of confidence and kind of anxiety that really is part and parcel to any artistic process, but certainly with a short film where you don't necessarily know where the funding's coming from or who's going to work on it or what's going on with the pandemic. Can you share a little bit, Jerusha, why don't you start with you?
Well, the moment we became super pumped was when this script came in, because it's, people in the audience, my husband and I usually write really big, dumb comedies. And so here we were offered this gorgeous, even if it's 13 minutes long, it felt so important. And it felt like, the most important movie we'll ever make. And so I think that was the moment we're like, wow, this is real and this is cool. So then we had the nerve-wracking moment of we don't know what we're going to get from these animators, that some of them were still in school, some of them have barely started their careers, and so we just didn't know what to expect, and so that was nerve-wracking. And then, I just think it goes like this the whole time. You're excited, you're excited. When Tim Blake Nelson came on, it was another just huge high, and he was the dream cast, and he does that Texas drawl so perfect and beautifully, and it gives such a human performance. So then again, we were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is going to be great. And then moments in the edit when you're like, oh, this is really clunky. I don't even know what this movie is. It feels too, I think it's just, it goes up and down the whole time. And after 3 years, you second guess yourself. For me, anytime the score comes in, I feel like I can breathe. I'm like, this is it. We've got a real movie. So it was just back and forth the whole time.
Tal and Amit, what about you?
If I can continue, Jerusha here, I really identify with this roller coaster along production, where you can have in one day a moment where like, we got this, I think I know where I'm going, and then by the evening you're like, there's no way this is going to work. So this is something that just you need to embrace as part of the process, but also to understand that took me a while to realize that this is part of the process, knowing that you cannot see the final result until you press the precious moment rendering thing, which was a delight to have. So I think mainly writing the script and having the storyboard and animatic was the moment where things were still so raw and was not really clear what will come before, after, how it will begin exactly and end. And only until we had this locked, I think it was quite, quite scary and weird to see, the end of it. And from there, it was all more, different challenges. How do you film a pig as a reference? How do you animate, this very personal language? How do you transfer it to the animators and articulate yourself and share the same visual language and other, challenges that we face along the way. But mainly, I would say that locking the story and to have it's all formed what was the biggest challenge. And from there, we felt like, okay, we have a film, then there's like more, things that we add along the way. I don't know, Amit, we want to add from your
the biggest challenge for me was Tal, basically. I mean, I had to deal with this crazy vision that we had to put on screen, and I think that we succeeded eventually. I mean, it's such a excitement to see this finally there. But I mean, along the way, I think from the first moment we met, it was kind of this process of really taking that idea that she had in mind, that dream that she had, and putting it on the big screen. And that was something that was always challenging to convey, but also exciting. The fact that I had to work with an amazing partner in France, with Pierre and Emmanuel, to get this vision off the ground, to finance it as much as we could, and we eventually did. So I mean, there are a lot of challenges, little challenges, but everyone excites me. I mean, just to work with Tal was an honor. So it was a real great opportunity to do that.
Yegan, what about for you? It may have been 5 months, but I'm sure it was. I'm sure it had its challenges.
Yeah, maybe for me the big challenge, or the moment that I didn't feel very confident, was when I was not really sure how the film is gonna be viewed and how it's gonna be interpreted by different viewers, because the subject is too far from most of the people. But at the same time, I was not really expecting anything big for this film to happen. I was mainly making it for myself, as I said. It was more like an experiment. So I somehow, I was not really afraid of anything. I was very confident in what I was doing, because I was having fun doing it. Maybe the biggest challenge was finding some people to do the sound design for me, because I could not do that part. And also there were not people who were willing to do this thing for me. So at the end, I had to do it myself, which I really don't think I did it. I mean, the sound design is really not something to be proud about. So that was my biggest challenge.
It's great. You did that yourself? That's amazing. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, if you watch the film, you realize that I did it myself. It's very obvious. Yeah.
Stéphanie, what about for you?
I'm a very I can be a very anxious person, so I think I never have the occasion to feel completely sure about the film to be finished. But for stay combative, stay for fighting, still fighting. So I just do all I could to not thinking about what could happen if something bad, or if we don't have enough funding to make the film. What can I do to replace the person who couldn't come because of I just try to not thinking too much about the future, and just focus on my work and what I was trying to say, to talk through Pachyderme, and to stay as sincere, honest as I could.
Okay. Dave and Brad, what about for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've made other films before, and this experience was a little unusual. And then right off from the bat, I was, we felt really confident about the story and the script. However, then you get the script up on reels, and it was good. I think we felt it was good, but the third act was broken. And I think that was the moment that was like, oh crap, we have a lot of work to do here. So I feel like when we got the reels up, and things shut down at Weta, because the big 10-foot blue people came in and shut down our crew, we took that opportunity to rewrite the third act to what it is today. And after that, we felt pretty good, and we moved forward. So it was really unusual for me to get to it that quick, because usually it never happens that quickly. So I feel like we were really lucky there. The other thing I'll say is that the whole reason why we made this film was because of the song, and the song was the problem of the film. The song was the hardest thing to place. We tried it all over in different spots and nothing was really working. And the reason why it wasn't working was because we had problems with the third act, and this, and the sort of the climax of the film wasn't working. Once we fixed the climax of the film, the song placed itself really nicely at that climax, and then things unlocked from there. But you know, it's that type of thing where I don't know if the rest of you go through this or not, but it's the type of thing where you get up the reels, or you get to a certain point in the screenplay or whatever it is, and you know, you're inspired and you're working for it, and then it's like, oh my God, something's broken and we have to dig back in and fix it. And I think film is basically just trying to remove all the things that aren't working until it finally does work. So, you know, I'd say anybody making a film is going to go through that experience of just like, okay, this was the intention, it's not hitting the intention yet. How do we continue to improve this until it does? So I think filmmaking's like that from my experience.
And I agree with Dave. The big thing was the song, and until we could get the story right, the song didn't work. And then even all the way up until the end, I always say it was like a jigsaw puzzle that didn't quite fit together, you know, when pieces don't quite click into place, and you're constantly trying to like push it down and make it fit. And it wasn't until we got Thomas Newman to come on, and he just, you know, created this. I feel like there's this really important, I call it kind of this beautiful little runway into the song. And I think a lot of it is showing restraint, but putting just the right amount of beauty in the score, leading us into the song, so John's voice can really take off in that moment of the film. I think that was a really kind of eureka moment for us, where we actually could sleep at night after Tom came in and helped kind of address that issue.
The other thing I'll just add to that is, like, you know, we have no dialogue in this film. So the score is so much the voice of the characters and the voice of the story, that having that come in late and finally work late, like we were really sweating that for most of the production. Like, how are we going to get this to work? How are we going to get the music to work? And like Brad's saying, when Thomas Newman came on and scored it and we worked with him, that's when we could finally sleep. Yeah.
We'll try and drag in a few questions here. This is from an anonymous attendee. What's your favorite moment or scene from your film, and why? Jerusha, why don't we start with you?
Each sense gets its own animator, you know, and its own animation style. And there's some really heavy, heartfelt, powerful moments. And my husband and I have different favorite parts, but my favorite still is in the sight sense. And it's the first sense we get. And it's by an animation team, Dominica Harrison, but it is so whimsical to me. And there's a moment where eyeballs are getting squished and cell phones are squishing them and little people are jumping in the cell phone. And it just feels so whimsical. And maybe it's feeding that little Sesame Street cartoon in my brain that I love, but I love it so much. The sound design was great there. It is just a lovely little piece of animation.
Yegan, what about for you?
Probably the ones that involved a lot of improvisation. They were mostly joyful for me, because I did not expect it to happen that way. I just improvised something and it just happened. One of the scenes that was purely made out of improvisation was when the kids are chanting their slogans. It was both very fun to make, and also the idea just popped out that this is a cool way to show our morning routines.
Stephanie, what about for you?
One of my very favorite moments is when the little girl is in the car with her grandfather, and they go on inside of the garage. In this shot, the character is trapped in a lot of frame, in a lot of she's in the car with the door the door is sliding from the garage, and inside, outside, there is also the clôture around the garden. And she is trapped in a lot of boxes, boxes into another boxes. I was. It was a moment where to show how the character her lack of escape.
Tal, as a director, do you have a favorite moment or scene from your film?
Well, it's quite hard because all of them are babies. We get attached to every single shot for so long. But if I need to pick one, I would say this is the moment quite towards the end of the film where the young heroine Alma is taking the little pig down, and releasing it from this white strings. After a very I won't tell too much, but a very expressive and difficult moment. Maybe this is the first time in the film that every time I watch it, I feel like I can start breathe, because the film is so condensed and carries so many, the burden and the difficulties of the story passing on. And this is the first moment that you have an actual contact, hand contact, physical contact that is compassionate and gentle and delicate. And it was really important for me that this moment will feel like that. And it took us quite a ride to reach this final outcome, to have the actual hand of the actor with the animated piglet and make it feel sincere, and this embracing moment, which is for me part of the message of the film towards the very end, to convey this compassionate moment and this more light and hopeful part. So I guess this for me is the one that still makes my heart beat when I see it.
Okay. And Dave, what about for you?
Yeah, for me, I think it's in the beginning of the film when we have that snow. You see the boot come in from the sergeant, and he steps out of it and the blood fills in from the footprint in the snow. And it's kind of an image that I had. Well, not kind of, it was an image that I had when I was writing the screenplay early on. Like, it's one of the first images I could visualize of the film. And the reason for that is because, like, I like this idea of, like, how do you combine two kind of primal elements together to create, to give the audience visually the idea of what the film is about right away. And, like, there's tons of, all directors do this. You think about Miyazaki or like Ridley Scott in Gladiator with the hand through the grass, or whatever it is, or you see a burnout, you see like a burnout car and you immediately know what that story is. So for me, I was trying to figure out how I wanted to combine a couple elements to sum up the film. And what I like so much about it is you step away, the blood fills in, it's like, it's cold. You see that the war has been raging on for a while, that blood seeping in says that, and we pan up and then we see the sergeant and how miserable the soldiers are and what the chain of command is. And then, the bird Icarus flies right overhead. So for me, it was like this sort of like sums up a lot of the film in one shot. And we had to really work on that. Like, for some reason, the camera on that was just like beating the shit out of me. Like, we were having the hardest time, like, trying to get that shot right, trying from the side, trying from the front, trying from the back. And so anyways, a lot of work went into that. And, it's one that I'm particularly proud of. And I think sort of gives you the flavor of what the film is early on without giving too much away.
There's a shout out from one of the animators on 95 Senses, Daniel Bruson, who said, just wanted to congratulate all the animators on all the nominated films. So Daniel, thank you for your sentiments. We've got 28 questions and we've just got a few minutes left. There's a few of the questions were kind of the same, so I've got them into one. And Tal, I guess I'll start with you. How difficult has it been to find an audience for your film? You know, there's so much content out there and so many places to get it. And shorts, we all know it's always been difficult for shorts to get in front of audiences. So how difficult has it been for you? And do you see that challenge getting any easier?
I mean, talking about making the film and the fear that it will never reach, other hearts, that was all along the way. And I was so happy when the film was released to realize that it has, the ripples and the possibilities of a short film. Still, there are, through festivals and live screenings, online screenings, people reach to you by email or physically, and you realize that this have an effect. So I feel like that there is still an improvement to do for shorts, obviously, compared to maybe feature films in terms of visibility. But the variety of options for a short film through live festivals and online conferences and screenings, and I feel like the film was widely spread because the global responses I received from different parts in the world ensured me that this is something that resonates with a wide audience somehow, and I was really happy to discover that along the way. It was circling for a year and a half now, and yeah, this is really make me happy to see that it's possible.
Jerusha, what about for you?
Our film has had just a really organic spread, which I think it has been so delightful and surprising. We send it to a friend and just like, hey, check this out. And they're blown away. And again, I'm going to reiterate that Jared and I make these different kinds of movies. Our famous movie is Napoleon Dynamite. And suddenly when you are watching this movie, 95 Senses, thinking it's from those directors, it shocks people. It really surprises them. And I think that little juxtaposition has been a really positive thing for us, that, wow, the Hesses can do, they can be serious and poignant. Yes, so it's had an organic life. It played like gangbusters at all the festivals. I think that, I look at what Wes Anderson is doing. He's making shorts nonstop. He's putting them on the map. I think there's space and room for shorts to exist in the mainstream, and I think we're seeing it more. So fingers crossed, guys.
I will add just real quick that I think there's a lot more people than ever before that are looking for, they're looking out for good films. And if it and the viral nature of the online world is such that one person in one place sees your film and the next day it can be in front of a whole bunch of people. So Yegan, what about for you?
Yeah, pretty much the same as others said. I think festivals are a great place to find your audience. I didn't expect my film to be watched by many people, but I was surprised that it reached so many people. And for me, I think the best way to find my audience was sending it to festivals.
Stephanie, what about for you?
I know it was to meet some people who had seen watched the film and who came to me in the end of the screening to talk to me and ask questions. It means a lot for me because I didn't did that film for nothing, and it touched some people, and we could connect.
And last but not least, Dave and Brad, what about for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there are more avenues than ever before for people to see short films, but I still feel like everyone else has said we have a ways to go to get the short form to be taken as serious as any other category in the Oscars. But I think it's made great strides, and I feel like for us, you know, it has been super exciting to see it, you know, go viral in a lot of respects. But yeah, it's such an exciting art form because you can take more risks than you ever could with a feature film. And in the case of this film, in our career, I think we always have worked on things that have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and this one was so oddly hands off. Like we had all the support in the world, but Dave and I got to make the film we wanted to make. There was really no notes at all. It was pure filmmaking, you know, at its core essence. I think Dave's vision and you know, the vision of all the people involved really made it to the screen with no interference whatsoever.
There's one more question that someone submitted. It's probably an unfair question. I'm going to give you the question. I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. You'll know why in a minute. And then while you're thinking about it, I'll do a little last minute admin here as well, and then we'll finish up. The question is, if you had to sum up your film in just one word, what would it be? So there you go. Give it a moment to think. While they're doing that, again, I want to thank Maria Elena for putting this on. Everyone out there, the audience, thank you very much for taking your valuable time to spend some time with us today. It's always greatly appreciated. You know, I've spent almost 30 years in the animation business, and this type of thing, this type of discussion is it's the most enjoyment I get in everything that I do as a publisher and editor. So I want to thank you all as well. And with that, we'll finish up. Tal, I'm gonna start with you. If there's a word that you could use to sum up your film, what would it be?
If I choose one word, I'll let it be compassion.
Okay. Amit, do you want to leave it at that, or you want to add something?
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Yegan, what about for you?
Really, one word is difficult. I would say textures.
Textures. Okay. Jerusha, what about you?
Hope.
Stephanie, what about you?
Denial.
And Dave, what about you?
Brad and I looked at each other and at the same time said peace.
That's a very, very, very good way to kind of conclude this. Tal, Amit, Jerusha, Yegan, Stephanie, Dave, and Brad, thank you very, very much for joining us here today. It's unfortunate that only one of you is going to come away with the Oscar, but as far as I'm concerned, you're all winners. To be nominated is a great honor. You made great films. Shorts have always been very, very near and dear to me because they tend, as you've all been sharing with us, they're passion projects. They're just as difficult as anything. They're hard to finance. They're hard to bring resources together to tell a story that's very near and dear to you. And we're all appreciative that you made films that we've been able to see. So good luck at the upcoming Oscars. Thank you again, Maria Elena, and thank you all for joining us. Thanks, everybody.